Hey everybody, Professor Snart here, checking in. So it is a lovely Friday morning when I'm recording this. We are at, let's see, technically the second due date for Unit 6, but there's actually no sort of reply component to Unit 6 because of the stuff that we're doing. So we were really just focused on that first due date. And again, my earlier video check-in sort of covered us through a couple of these units here. So I'm going to review that a little bit and then extend us a little bit further, but this is kind of repeating territory from the previous announcement. Okay. Oh, so actually a quick thing that I will pop into is our, actually I'll go to our units first. So like it says early in our course, and what you'll see down much later into Unit 10 here, is the requirement for you to attend a poetry event or poetry-related event. I try to be as flexible as possible with that because it's hard to find, you know, poetry readings that are that common necessarily, and again, depends on where you live and obviously what your schedule is. But, right, you do have that requirement, so you should have been on the lookout from the get-go really in our course, but especially now as we're getting a little bit closer to that, that actual thing happening in Unit 10. Okay, so to help that process though, I do have an ongoing list of poetry events. And again, you can add to it by opening the document here if you want to. So I've tried to list things, and it's not just COD stuff, but you know, various things, and some of them are like this one, an actual poetry reading, an open mic kind of a deal. Again, I sort of grabbed almost any location in the Chicagoland area. Some of them are more official, like author reading. This is a pretty high profile type of thing. There's a writer's critique group that meets, I think, not just on that date, right, that's passed, but I think they meet on a fairly regular basis, so et cetera, et cetera. And then you can add anything, right, that you might come across too. And again, you'll notice that not all of these are like really strictly poetry reading type things. There's lots of other stuff too. So I think this is something that somebody else added, which is really cool. The art gallery. Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, again, not strictly poetry exactly, but clearly within our sort of universe of studying, right, poetry and authors. And then I wanted to highlight this one that I just added, and I sent an email out to everybody about a Veterans Day read-in. So this would be a great opportunity to go and hear some reading, but also to participate. So you're not just there as a sort of passive observer. You can actually get involved and read a poem or something else if you wanted. So that's a really good opportunity. It's obviously here on campus, kind of right in the middle of the day, and it offers you the opportunity to actually participate, not just be there as an observer. Okay, so make sure that as we move through our units, you're keeping in mind that by Unit 10, you have to report out on whatever poetry event you've ended up attending. And if you've got one in mind that you're not sure of, like does it count, you can just shoot me an email and hopefully we'll give it the thumbs up. All right, so in Unit 6 then, we did a quick, or not a quick, but what's the word I'm looking for? A build out or an update, that's what I'm looking for, of our portfolio pages, right? Sort of taking us back to one of the first things we did in the course. And we did the pretty standard exercise of reflecting on what we've been doing in the course, but tied specifically to the general course outcomes. So hopefully it gave you a good opportunity not just to reflect on what you've been doing, which has actually been quite a bit, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in just the unit by unit work, we almost forget like how much stuff we've actually done. And that bigger picture of like how are you accomplishing or showing evidence of being able to do these various course objectives, or what are sometimes called learning outcomes. So I think it's a really useful exercise. And hopefully it gave you a sense of really like not just accomplishing a lot of stuff, but accomplishing a lot of stuff within the context of, right, sort of learning these bigger objectives or outcomes. And then there was a quick check-in here for the groups that we'll use to do our group project, which unfolds in the units 7 and 8, which I'll look at in just a sec. So again, everybody in the identified groups here should have posted something to the discussion board about preferred method of contact, and now clearly what you need to do is go back into here and to follow up with your group members. So if you posted your phone number or email or whatever, and you happen to be the first in the group, Obviously now, right, is the time to go back in and then see what others have posted and figure out what your primary means of communication is going to be. So it can be a little awkward or fumbly at the start where you're sort of reaching out and not sure right, who you're talking to exactly, but you can get over that pretty quickly. But it's really important, obviously, to get in touch with people and sort of have that line of communication open as we move forward, which is what we're going to do right now. So Unit 7. Oh, and if you haven't done this little survey, ungraded, anonymous, just sort of like how things are going in the course, take some time and do it. It takes maybe 5 minutes at the most. All right. So our collaborative project here, your group is going to choose one poet. It should be a fairly, I would say, kind of, maybe famous isn't the right word, but a recognized or well-known poet. It doesn't have to be like old dead white guy, but it also shouldn't be someone who just like does a blog on the web somewhere. It should be someone who's a published author. You're going to tell us about that person, and then you want to analyze at least 3 works, maybe more, especially if the poet tends to write in clusters or groups or writes shorter stuff. So 3 is sort of like the minimum. So your group needs to decide on all of that stuff. So again, communication clearly important. You are going to then present your work, develop your work either in a Google slide deck or site, which again is a really great collaboration platform, because once you've shared that document or slideshow or site with the people in your group, then everyone kind of has access to it. So you still have to communicate about who's doing what or what the project should feel and look like, but you don't all have to be like literally in the same room working or emailing files back and forth, and then all of a sudden you forget which is the one you're supposed to be changing, and that's not a good situation. So Unit 7 is primarily a building unit, right, where you're connecting with your group, but now making some choices about what poet, what are the works. Here's some of the things that, again, just sort of like requirements, right? Some of them obvious. We need to seek collaboration by everybody. Make sure that you share your slide or site with me, right? Share it to this Google Apps for Education account, please. And that'll let me troubleshoot if there's tech issues, and also potentially help with other things as well. So reach through the requirements, right? So you know kind of what you're expected to produce. And then, again, analyze the stuff. You want to provide some information about the author, but we really don't want to just produce like a big, long encyclopedia entry of dry, kind of stale trivia. You want to give us a sense of who this person is and what the poems are like and what they mean or whatever, but we don't want to get too caught up in just making this like a bunch of facts, which you could already look up on the web, so why do a project that basically duplicates that? So you as a group need to think of a kind of creative way of maybe presenting that information, but in an interesting, engaging format. And I'll leave that for the groups to figure out. And then also I'd like to see each group member, I say write a couple paragraphs, but again, if you want to be more creative than that, but really sort of like, what is your own engagement with this poet and his or her work? How does it speak to you? Why is it interesting to you? So not something that you can just look up or that already exists on the web, but something that you yourself have to produce, and hopefully in an interesting, creative way, not just a paragraph that you slap together at the last minute to fulfill a requirement. So one of the things that I'll tell you is that right, Google sort of tracks all of the changes that are made to a document. So it is really easy for me to see who has done what and when. So again, if it's all the work of like one person, it's easy to see. If it's all done at the last minute, that's easy to see. If like the site is built here and then all of the content is just kind of slapped in there at the last minute, it's easy to see. So it is possible, not just through guesswork, to figure out like who has been invested and involved and how the work has unfolded. Hopefully it's an interesting, engaging project that you as a group can really take on and develop in a creative way and invest some real energy and time in. Okay, so the assignment here then for Unit 7 is to use the discussion board and post or embed a link or the actual thing that your group is working on. It's going to be in draft form, we get that, but it should have some content developed. Now, only one person needs to post for the group. Make sure you include people's names, right, from your whole group, so I can sort of see, right, who's connected to what. But then every student should respond to at least 2 projects, obviously not your own, and provide some encouragement or feedback or some ideas for how it could branch out, things that you like, especially if you're the person posting for your group and your group has questions like about what to do next, or does this work, or does it look okay. That's really good, because then people can kind of target their feedback to those particular questions. All right, so again, we have a discussion board set up, so we're back to our double due date system, but we understand that what you're posting is just a draft, or your project in the process of creation. There should be some stuff there, but we get that it's not completed. It will be due, though, in final form in Unit 8, right, which is the next one. Pretty simple. I might build this out a little bit, but all you're really doing is using this unit for a few days of extra building time and collaboration, and then again just posting your or reposting the link or embedding the project in its final finished form. So the final due date for that, right, is going to be for Unit 8, but it's going to be that first due date, right, because this is main work. We're not doing a reply thing. We actually will pick up the replies in Unit 9, but we do that in a slightly different format. Okay, so you should have made contact with your group members by now as part of Unit 6, or again, at least provided your contact info, so now it's time to get back in there and actually get in touch with people via email or text or however they've indicated. Figure out how you as a group want to communicate, right, on an ongoing basis, and then begin the work that will unfold in Units 7 and 8, again looking towards Wednesday, November 1st as the due date, the final due date for the project in its final finished form. And again, remember to share that with me, or add me as an editor is a better way to put it. Where's that? Sooner rather than later. So it's highlighted here. And again, you're not just emailing me the link, but you're actually using the share function or the collaborate function within Slides or Sites, and then including me or adding me as an editor or collaborator. I clearly won't do anything in there, but it is really good for troubleshooting if something comes up. Okay, so hopefully we've laid the groundwork for really successful, creative, engaging projects to unfold now. And obviously, if you have questions or concerns, you can be in touch with me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.